In this training module, you will be taken through the basics of the Dutch Automatic Train Control System, called ATB, which provides the in-cab safety and signaling system. ATB-EG, or first generation, covers the signal pulse codes and cab speed enforcement. ATB-VV, or improved version, includes track magnets installed at select stop signals, which provide increased protection. First, let's turn on enforcement of ATB. If you leave enforcement disabled, you will still receive guidance from the system, but do not need to take any actions. With enforcement enabled, you must react correctly or the train will be stopped. The ATB system consists of two parts, one within the track and signal infrastructure to generate pulse codes, the other on board the train to interpret and enforce speed restrictions. ATB-EG enforces speed restrictions between 40 and 140 kilometers per hour, determined by the pulse code being generated from the next signal ahead of the train. The principles of ATB works as follows. When approaching a slower section of track, a change in pulse code occurs, which will be detected by the train. The train picks up this pulse code change, and the ATB determines the new maximum speed to enforce. ATB only intervenes when the train speed exceeds the pulse code enforced speed, or the brake curve speed enforced by the magnets ahead of a stop signal. So long as you keep under these speed restrictions, ATB won't intervene. In this training module, you will be exceeding the speed restrictions to see the ATB intervention and learn the procedures for handling it. When a speed restriction is exceeded, an alarm will sound to warn the driver. The driver has a few seconds to apply the brake to safely reduce the speed of the train. Accelerate the train now and exceed the speed limit. When the alarm sounds, apply braking until the train speed has reduced below the current restriction. If the brake is not applied in this time, ATB will enforce an emergency brake application to bring the train to a complete stop. Exceed the speed limit again and wait for the train to enforce emergency braking. In a situation where you need to recover from an ATB enforced emergency braking, the following steps are the required recovery procedure. Press the Engine.ini button on the digital display screen. Set the master controller back to the 0 position. There is an indicator on the display screen to indicate the emergency enforcement. The indicator will turn off after the recovery steps have been performed. You will now experience an ATB enforced brake curve. Proceed at 40 km per hour until the emergency brake is triggered. When approaching a signal equipped with the ATB magnets, you must be prepared to stop the train. ATB magnets will enforce a brake curve over the existing pulse code restriction, which is intended to stop the train before passing the signal. These ATB magnets are installed at 120, 30, and 3 meters in front of select signals, but will only enforce a braking curve when the signal displays a stop aspect. Perform the emergency brake recovery procedure as previously demonstrated. Set the master control. Press the Engine.ini button on the digital display screen. Set the master controller back to the 0 position. When the signal aspect improves, These magnets will disable the brake curve, allowing the train to continue solely under the influence of the pulse code restriction. The train must pass one of these magnets in order for it to relay the command to enable or disable the brake curve. In some areas, there is also a disarming loop that stretches about 60 meters from the signal, which can disable the brake curve without needing to pass one of the ATB VV magnets. It is recommended to proceed at no more than 10 kilometers per hour until you pass the signal to ensure you are clear of the braking curve. Until you pass the ATB VV magnet, you will still be driving under the influence of the braking curve. That covers the basics of the ATB safety systems. You can always replay this training module if you need a refresher on these topics.